Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to episode 30 of Knittings and Sewings with myself and my colleague here, Walter. We're from the Kansas City area, and on this podcast, we talk about all things knitting, spinning, weaving, sewing, crocheting, you name it, we do it, including natural dyeing. And today, that's actually one of the things we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But hang with us until we get to that part, because the first thing I want to talk about in episode 30 is the finished object I am wearing. And when Walter gets down here a little bit, I won't show you yet because he's relaxing, but I am wearing the Emmanuel tee, which is a pattern, a free pattern by Hobby, the online yarn seller where I end up buying a lot of my yarn. I'm on a tight budget, and I really appreciate having affordable yarns to choose from Hobby. And they're not a sponsor of mine. I just happen to really like them. And this yarn that I bought for this project is the Friends Cotton Silk. And this is like something like 70% cotton and 30% silk. And it is knit on it's a DK or I don't know if it's considered a DK, but it's knit on this top on a size 7 needle. Because I knit looser and I got 3 gauge swatches in order to find the right one, I ended up knitting it going down 2 needle sizes to a size 5 to knit this top to make it the right fabric that I wanted. But at any rate, I'll lean forward a little bit to show you the way the top is, and I'm going to have a picture up here in just a moment of the front and the back, me modeling it in its finished form. The part that is obviously the feature of this design, the best feature for me, is the back. It has a lace back that is just beautiful and almost looks like it has a cable down the back, but it is not a cable. You're just doing straight lace knitting. So the only part that I really was not as happy with was, you can see there's about a 3-inch little section here where the V-neck would have been all the way down to here if I had not seamed it up. And so the seaming I did, I'm not a perfect seamstress when it comes to sewing together in an obvious spot like that. So I tried it a couple of different times, but as you can see, it isn't perfect. There's a little bit, it's a little bit visible there. That's my biggest critique of this particular, the way this turned out. In the future, I would do it differently, and I'll tell you about that in a minute to avoid that problem. But I do want to mention that while I was thinking about this the other day, trying it on, what I would do right now to distract a little bit from that poor seaming job I did is to I'm going to put 3 little decorative buttons there. And I think that will help distract a little bit. Let me know what you think. But all in all, I will say that the one thing also, besides that obvious seaming issue I had there, trying to seam up that 3 inches of extra cleavage, the other thing that I wasn't as happy with this way this turned out is that my own knitting is not as even. And I realized that because after working on this and getting ready to block it, as I was looking at the fabric, I could tell that you start at the top and go down, and you start knitting flat at first. So you're doing a purl row on the back until you get to the V split. And that place where the V and the arm split is where you start knitting in the round. Meanwhile, you're increasing here to make the sleeves on your raglan stitch. On either side of the raglan stitch, you are increasing up into that point. So the other thing I noticed was that because of my own knitting tension was poor on this upper part of the body where I was knitting flat. And the reason for that, I believe, is because whenever you purl, when I was at the workshop with Marie Green at the Knitting Light workshop where she talked about our Knitting Light book, she mentioned that whenever you knit with plant fibers such as cotton or bamboo or silk, they have a little bit different hand to them. and that your knitting is never appears quite as even, especially as you're doing the knitting itself. Once you block it out, as in all things, blocking cures a lot of evils and a lot of imperfections in your work. But I did notice a fairly noticeable difference in the fabric that I created on those purl rows. I had what they call rowing out, which means that my tension was not quite as even on those purl rows. So I don't know if you ever had that happen or not. Like there's little tiny ridges that appear, especially on the back of the work. You can see it more easily. And I had a lot of that rowing out going on and just some uneven stitches. I had some little holier areas, especially here at the top. So I wasn't as happy with the fabric as I normally am when I work with wool, which is my favorite thing to work with is wool. But I did have a lot of a tension issue there at the top before I joined the work. So I just want to mention that. Be a little bit more forgiving of yourself as you are working with cotton, and realize that you want to take a look at that fabric and make sure that your knit tension is even enough that it won't be a problem later. But blocking does cure a lot of the evil of your little imperfections in your work. So you have to be a little forgiving of yourself. But overall, I'm very happy with this. I do feel comfortable wearing this now. And the size and the fit turned out very well. But as I said, the feature of this design, the best part of the design, is on the back. And so for that reason, I really felt that lace motif on the back was beautiful. And I really like that. So now what I'm going to do is also tell you a few tips that I found. The Emmanuel tee is by Johanna Gerisch. Gehrisch, and I will have, it's called the Emmanuel tee, and I will have a link to the pattern in the show notes, so be looking for that. But one thing I will say is I took a few notes that might be helpful to you, these tips, if you decide to make this pattern. First of all, I ran off 2 different copies of the pattern itself because I wanted one of the copies to be open to the chart. And on the chart, I actually used a highlighter. I was going to show you, but I don't think I have it on this copy. But I used a highlighter tape, those see-through little tapes that you can buy to help you with lace knitting. I used that line by line to help me advance through the chart and not lose my place. And I think that is very helpful. But also helpful is having 2 copies of the chart, one with the instructions on it and the other with the chart with your highlighter tape, so that you don't have to keep flipping around in the pattern in order to find your place. Then also, there are 27 stitches on the lace panel in the back. That 27 stitches stays the same for you no matter what size you are. I was knitting the size 3, which is the medium, for my gauge I was getting, so I'm the medium, number 3. For my medium size, I was knitting the 27 stitches, and I had stitch markers on either side. I had decorative stitch markers, so I would differentiate them from the raglan markers that are on the sleeves. The raglan markers, I just used plastic light bulb markers. And so I knew when I got to these decorative markers that I was getting to the lace section. That was a warning to me to be looking at the chart and pay attention. So on my particular size, on one side, on one stitch on either side made up the lace stitches. But the marker part I marked was the lace 27 stitches. And I would repeatedly count those 27 stitches every time to make sure I was staying on track and not adding or subtracting stitches. And then the other thing I would do is the lace patterning chart is 24 rows long. So when you're knitting flat, you're going to be, you're only going to be following the chart on those odd number rows, like 1 and 3. I'll make sure that's correct. It was the, 1 and 3 and 5 and so forth. You are following the chart. But then between, like on 2 and 4 and all the even number rows, you're either going to be purling on the back side when you're knitting flat. And when you get to that row 59 or wherever it is you connect, then on those you're going to be knitting once you get in the round. But you have to have that purl or that knit row in between the patterning stitches. And the reason is that kind of like closes up the open row you did with the lace, if that makes sense. And by the way, this is a really easy lace pattern. I think lace chart, I think it would be very doable even for a person who is newer at knitting lace. This would be a great first project for you if you are knitting lace for the first time and learning to read a chart. But on those, just remember that on those even rows, you are going to be either doing a purl row, or later on when it's closed together in a circular fashion, then you're going to be doing a knit row, a plain knit row, and that closes up that loose yarn over or whatever lace patterning you were doing on that previous row. I hope that makes sense. Then also another tip is on the edging, you're going to put a knit stitch on the beginning and end stitch of each row. Even if you're on a purl side row, you're going to do a knit stitch. That creates a nice little even edging for you to later pick up for the I-cord. And it just makes a neat edge. So you are going to want to do a knit stitch at the beginning and end of each row. The other thing is you're going to want to try on your blouse as you go. You want to make sure you get a good fit and you haven't wasted all your time knitting something that's going to be ill-fitting. So do try it on as you go. I had little knitting cords that I put through, and I did try this on 3 or 4 times while I was knitting it, and especially to get to the section on where you want the hem to be. How far down do you want the hem to go? Will you be happy with the length? And again, for this V-neck, to make sure you're on target with that. If you're looking for that in this pattern, then you'll be making sure that you're going to be happy with where the V sits on your body. Also, the last tip I have is that you're going to be using an I-cord bind off on this pattern. So what that means is you want a nice little edging that you will be doing around the neck, the sleeves, and the hem at the bottom. And you want the I-cord edging to be the right tension, because for some people they're going to go down 2 needle sizes to make a tighter little even nice bind off. For other people, you might have to go down 1 needle size like myself. I ended up only needing to go down 1 needle size to a size 4. Because if you go too tight, it's going to make the binding not lay as flat and nice and even. So what I think would be a good idea is to take the gauge swatch you did at the beginning and do a little I-cord bind off test on the edge of that gauge swatch. That will help you figure out which is the right size for you to go down on that I-cord. I suggest you do that rather than experiment on the body of your sweater, because you can undo. It's possible to undo an I-cord bind off, but for some of you who haven't done them before, that might be a little tricky. So I would just go ahead and do that little swatch to test it out on the gauge swatch. All in all, I've been very happy with the way this turned out. And in spite of my initial misgivings, I really do think it's something I'm going to wear frequently. And let me know if you end up trying it yourself, because I definitely think it's an easy, fun, and well-designed summer knit. I want to talk about the tea that I'm drinking this morning. It is one of my favorites. In the summer, I love to drink blueberry tea, and this is Blueberry Sage by Republic of Tea. These are individual tea bags in this little canister. And I really love the smooth taste of this and very delicate taste. This is my summer tea mug here for home. But that's a really nice, smooth, mild taste that I especially appreciate in the summer months. So one reason I'm drinking this particular tea today is because I want to talk to you now about a natural dyeing experiment that I did this last week over the Memorial Day holiday. And I'm going to show you the result, the final result. First of all, I had back in 2019, I'd been really into natural dyeing. And so I decided to dye a tank top in blueberry, which is an acidic kind of, blueberries have a little bit of acidity to them. And you do have to, with natural dyes, you have to mordant them first. This was with this cotton t-shirt. And so I first soaked it in alum is what I used at the time, and then I dyed it with blueberries. This shirt lasted for 4 years. And then I decided this shirt was getting a little bit faded and had a little bit of a grease stain on the front there that I got on it, and so I wanted to redo it. But first I tried over dyeing this tee, which you'll see me doing in just a moment. I'm going to show you a brief little snippet of my dyeing experiment. But then I also decided to take a new fresh tee that I just ordered from Amazon, and I decided to do the experiment again. And this is the fresh purple color that I got out of the blueberry dye. And I also tried to dye this yarn with the afterbath that was left over, and it came out this little pretty pinky purple, because I just dyed it in the dye that was left over in the dye bath to absorb that extra dye. And I'm going to use this. I like this. This is on cotton yarn. Cotton doesn't absorb color nearly as well as wool does. But so if you are doing a cotton item, and I think a baby onesie or a child's t-shirt would be a really nice, cute thing to do with this blueberry. Blueberries are on sale right now at this time of year, and it's a good time. You just need a pint of blueberries to make this dye. So I'm going to be talking about that in just a moment, but I did want to tell you that I was happy with my results, and I hope that you will try your hand at natural dyeing. I'm probably going to be doing quite a bit of it this summer, and if you would like to see more things that I have dyed, let me know in the comments, and I may have follow-up videos even if you're interested. But here we go with last weekend when I did my dyeing out on the deck. This morning, it's a lovely spring day out on our deck, and what I've been doing for the past 24 hours is just soaking a previously dyed shirt. I had dyed this about 4 years ago, and you can see with the water it looks pretty purple, but as it dries it does fade. So what I'm wanting to do, this has lasted 4 years though, which is pretty good. I just took a Hanes little tank top, and I had dyed it 4 years ago in blueberries, but first soaking in alum, it's called. You can buy alum even at the grocery store. And this is a brighter purple than it actually shows up once it's dry. It's a it's faded over time, like all dyes, natural dyes, especially ones that are fugitive like blueberry. So we're going to do it today since it's almost June and blueberries are in sale. We're going to take, we'll see how much we need, some blueberries, and we're going to dye this. But before we can immerse this tank top, we first need to make our dye liquor, it's called, our dye stuff, our dye juice. And how we're going to do this is begin by pouring, this is just some distilled water I got at the grocery store. We're just putting this into a pot, and I'm doing this outside, but natural dyes, the beauty of them is they don't stain nearly as badly, and they dye very slowly. So what I'm going to first begin doing, I'll go ahead and start this. And I'm going to, while that's heating up, I'm going to put the blueberries, and I'm not sure how much it's going to take, but I'm going to try to fill it up in these little netted bags that you can buy. I think I bought this bag at the dollar store. I'm going to go ahead and start with 1.5 pints of blueberries, because that's sort of what I remember it taking before. And I'm going to just put this in here to start making the bath. You might come over here, Bob. We've been brewing this on high for almost an hour. And one thing I decided, and I recalled from my previous episode, this is a little bit hot, but not too hot. So I'm going to get it out of here. I'm taking a masher, like a potato masher. One thing that I recalled is that I actually smashed the blueberries in order to extract more dye from it. Because if it has like that, Smells good, doesn't it? Yeah. Then that is going to extract even more dye. And I did remember, oh, I forgot to also mention, I'll show you in a moment here, that I put, I'll rinse that out and add that to the dye pot. But I was using alum, this little, you might hone in on this. This is just from the grocery store. I put a little bit of this in the dye pot as well as soaking previously the t-shirt in it overnight. So now we're going to get a lot more. As you can see, it looks really, really purple in here now. And I'm going to bring this to a boil. And then I'm going to be immersing the t-shirt in it fairly shortly, but I want to let this just kind of brew a little bit longer. And then next we'll be putting the t-shirt in for it to soak for quite a while. See you back in a bit. Hi, we're back. The next step, we're going to take the tank top, which has been soaking in this alum, like I said, and we're now ready to take the dye mixture out, which is your blueberries in our case. Since I have it in a little baggie, it makes it much more simple to remove. So I'm just going to let that drain a little bit so I don't lose any juice that I can avoid. And I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to hold on to this because I may still later end up immersing again, because one thing I'm considering is if I have enough, I might dye this yarn that's been soaking. This is cotton yarn, and cotton it is dyeable, but again with alum as a mordant. So it needs a mordant. So it's been soaking, and now I'm going to immerse. You might come over here close to show that I'm just immersing the shirt. I'm going to leave it in the heat for some time, probably up to an hour. And you can see already it's getting darker. But I'm going to keep coming back and rechecking this to make sure it's dyeing as evenly as possible. And I'm going to just leave it to be in the heat of this juice for up to an hour. And then we'll come back and see. We'll probably then turn it off and let it continue soaking with the heat off for even longer. But that's our process. We're almost done already. Well, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. I had let this simmer. I did not have it boiling, but simmering after it got up to its full temperature. And I decided to pop in some yarn, the cotton yarn I was discussing. And so now I'm ready to immerse this, take this out. It's cooled completely after all these hours. It's been in and just sitting in that lukewarm bath, and then it cooled. And now I'm going to douse it into a bath, a clean bath of the spring water with some ice in it. Somehow I read online that a little ice helps set it a little more. I don't know. But I think it's pretty much with natural dyes. You're not going to have leaking out of the color anyway. There's a little bit coming out. I'll let Bob come over here in a second. I want to come over and show there is a little bit of purple coming out, but not too much. And so this is the color wet that we've ended up with. And it does fade a little bit as you dry it. So that will happen. I'm going to be hanging it and letting it dry. And I even washed this. When I wash this blouse, I wash it in the regular washing machine. The first time I wash it, I'll probably wash it by itself just to make sure there's no more bleeding. But eventually, I'll just put it in the regular wash. Now we'll rinse out the yarn. This is cotton. And it came out, again, it'll probably fade as we put it in the water. But it's a nice kind of dusty, rosy lilac color, it looks like to me. So we'll see how much it fades. We're picking up some wind here. Not too much, just coming off. So that's the color we're ending up with. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. And one thing I want to mention, one more thing about that natural dyeing, if you decide to do the blueberry experiment yourself, keep in mind that blueberry, like a lot of natural plant material, isn't always, it can be called what's called a fugitive, meaning that sometimes it's not going to stay long term, like I showed you with my faded tank. This is after re-dyeing it, but over time it does fade a little bit, and that's why I decided to re-dye it. So they are fugitives because some of the dye color escapes over time, and especially when it's exposed to sunlight, as my tank top was when I wore it all the time outside in the light. It takes a long period of time, but it does fade over time. So also another thing about the blueberry is that it's very pH sensitive. So because of that, if you were to wash this in a base, like for a detergent, which you would after you wear it, then it will make a little bit different color. It'll fade, or it'll switch, not fade. It will switch to a more blue color, a bluish gray color, and will, give you a totally different color. So don't be amazed and freaked out if you wash it and find that the color switches on you. And then, anyway, I just want to mention that. So if that bothers you, then you may not want to dye with blueberries. But I really enjoy the mercurial nature of natural dyes, and not everything, some things are more color fast than others. So if you would care to read more about it, you can find videos on the internet, and you can find a lot of books on natural dyeing that will give you a clue of what will be more color fast than others. So the other things that I like to dye with a lot are from the kitchen. Things like avocados, onions. Onion skins make a phenomenal dye, and they are more hardy. They will stay with it longer. I also love to work with black beans, but they are very fugitive, so the color may not last. It will fade to a kind of a soft gray color once it's exposed to light or to time. So anyway, natural dyeing is a blast, and I hope you enjoyed seeing this little glimpse into my own experiment. One thing that I sometimes forget to mention is I do crocheting as well as knitting. And for those of you who are crochet lovers, I have been just starting on a project that you may be interested in as well. I want to make not only a couple of these summer tops that I can wear throughout the heat of the summer, but I also wanted to make a tank top. My friend Carolyn and I have been wanting to make a tank top for quite some time, and we've been looking through a whole bunch of different tank top patterns. One thing that I ran upon was a tank top tutorial for crochet by one of my favorite tutorial and YouTubers is Bagoday Crochet. She came up with an easy crocheted tank. There's no pattern for it per se, but you go to her YouTube channel, and I'll put a link below. You will be able to see what it is I'm talking about. I'm going to show you the beginning of my own crochet tank that I am doing currently. So here we go. I haven't talked about crochet in a little while, and I still do crochet and enjoy it a lot. One reason I like crochet so much is you can get a garment done very quickly. Or if you're doing a shawl, not only do I enjoy the crochet process, but the quickness of it is very appealing. So I decided I need for the summer to make a tank top. And what better way to make one quickly than to crochet? So I'll let you know how this goes, but it's the Bagoday Crochet Easy Tank Top YouTube. It's not a pattern per se, but it is a YouTube that shall step you through it step by step. Crystal at Bagoday. So I will put a link for that if anyone wanting to try this also along with me. This is going vertically, the stripes go vertically, and then it goes around the body. And so the yarn I'm using to do this, that I chose, is the Truboo. It's called Lion Brand Truboo, 100% rayon from bamboo, and it is a very soft, silky yarn. It says it's a 3-weight, but I don't believe this is. This feels to me like a fingering weight. So I'm holding 2 of these together. And the color I'm using is a silver argent. And what I did to get the length that I needed was to take a tank top of mine that fits, and I'm using a size I crochet hook, by the way. But I just took a tank top that fits and measured from here to here, and I had 14 inches to fit me at the right place. So that's how long I'm making my length of my tank top. And then later I will be adding straps as well. So if you have a tank top that fits, that's a good guideline to use to figure out how large you want to make this tank top. I hope you'll try it along with me. I'll let you know next time how it works out. As you can see, I'm not very far along at all with it, but I am liking the way that everything is looking so far. One more thing I want to talk about when it comes to tanks is, I said Carolyn and I are both really wanting to do a knitted tank this summer, and we're getting ready to have our own little mini knit along between the two of us. And so we've been searching out patterns on Ravelry for several weeks now. And what we landed on is one called the Knitted Tank Top Pattern by Wannipa, that's W-A-N-N-I-P-A, Yonker, N-O-N-K-E-R. It's just a very simple but attractive looking knitted tank top pattern. I'll put a picture of it up here. We haven't yet started this, but as soon as my yarn arrives, I am going to use the same yarn that I used for this tank, or this top. I'm going to use for the tank, except I'm going to use the variegated version, which my color is a pinkish cream color. I'll show you once I get that in. Right now it's not here yet. So once I get that, I will do a gauge swatch and we'll let you know next time how that goes with the start of that. But we're going to both do this knitted tank top pattern. It is a DK weight yarn, so it shouldn't take me too long to do it. It's again knit on a US, this is knit on a US 5. So I will probably do a gauge swatch and need to go down a little bit on my needle size. But I will show you that next time. If any of you care to join us on that little, it's not an official knit along, but if you would like to join us, feel free to check out that pattern. It is free. However, there's also a $5 version that's easier to print, and it has a video attached to it where the designer shows you some basic things. It's a very basic tank, so if you are a newer knitter, this is one you could definitely easily do, and there is a video that accompanies it. So I paid for the $5 version to support the designer, and so if you would like to check it out, feel free to do so, and let me know if you're making it also. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us here at Knittings and Sewings. I haven't done much sewing lately, speaking of sewing, and I would like to do some this summer if I can get around to that. But I have so many projects that I've been working on, and I've been trying to do more projects and just delve in and have a get it done kind of attitude, because it's really amazing to me how much I can do in what limited free time I have when I just delve in and work on different things at once. I still get a lot done. It just is something that, you know, I'm seeming to have a good year as far as getting projects started and finished. So yeah, anyway, please join us anytime. Feel free to go back to earlier episodes if you want to see the other things I've gotten up to. But I will try to come back to you here in the next couple of weeks, and that will be the next episode 31. And by then I hope to have started the tank top that we're talking about and maybe get a little bit further on the crocheted tank top. I've also started warping up a new project on my rigid hollow loom, and we'll see if I get farther into that. Anyway, it'll be a fun episode next time. I hope to have also finished my inkle loom dog leash so that you can see it's not yet quite off the loom. I've just been working on it very rarely, but I'm continuing on with that as well. Until next time, love what you're making and wear what you make. Goodbye, everybody.